My name's Dave Dubeau, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubeau. And if you've ever been curious about the magic behind a successful vacation rental business, today on the show, I've got Patricia Berman, the communications maestro, and Dennis Cobos, the tech genius. Patricia ensures top-notch guest experiences, while Dennis orchestrates the back-end managing tech and operations. Today, we're going to dive into their secrets of Cobos co-hosting successful business here. Welcome to the show, Patricia and Dennis. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone.
So yeah, this is like an emerging trend where it used to be when Airbnb started, people were just, it was like, oh, I have an Airbnb, I'm managing it myself. And then people's portfolios started to grow and grow and grow, and it became something where these management companies started to pop up, and especially in these vacation spots and these beach places where people are buying a lot of these properties and you're having a lot of turnover. You know, if you're just a lower suite in an apartment and you're living upstairs, well, it's probably no big deal for you to go and clean it. But a lot of times these people are nowhere near their properties. So what's been your experience as far as why people are hiring Airbnb management?
Well, I think I can definitely speak to that. I think that a lot of people jumped into short-term rental ownership. The returns look good. They're enticing. It's also enticing to own a vacation rental, right? Like I'm going to use this a couple weeks out of the year. So there's a lot of upside to owning a short-term rental. But when you get into the nitty-gritty of actually communicating with guests on a regular basis and managing your boots on the ground team, especially since it's likely that you don't live super close to your vacation rental. That part is more than it. I think a lot of people bit off more than they can chew. And so that's where Dennis and I have got into it. And it was the opposite, I think, for us, where we got into this and we were like, oh, this is great. I mean, I've been an executive assistant in finance for over 20 years. My entire skill set is based around, anticipating needs.
Make sure that the glass has the slice of lemon next to it, like the details of making sure that it's happening, right?
Yes, the details. And so I really felt like it was something that I can lean into. And that's kind of my side of it. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, I think over the last 5 years or so, there's been a lot of hype around short-term rentals, with Airbnb and VRBO, and especially over the early parts of the pandemic, where pretty much you can buy almost anything, throw it up on Airbnb, VRBO, and almost have it be a cash cow right away.
Yeah.
But I think to Patricia's point, right, people bit off more than they could chew. They started noticing that, maybe I don't like dealing with a lot of the guest communication, right? Maybe I don't like dealing with things that might pop up every now and then, a sink is not working properly, things of that nature. And then having to possibly deal with guests that might be a little bit more higher touch, right? And then you have to manage that carefully so that you can end up with a 5-star review, right? Because everything in the algorithm is really based off of those reviews. So even as you're starting off, even if you get 1 4-star review, that's going to bump you down tremendously. So you really have to focus always, but especially at the beginning, to get as many 5-star reviews as you can. So that way the algorithm sees, hey, a lot of people like this property. So let's start pushing this higher and higher into the search.
Yeah, bump it up towards the top. Now, with the Airbnbs, how many of those are properties you guys own and manage, and how many of them would you say are just managed properties for other people, other investors?
Yes, so we have a total of 7 within our portfolio. 3 of those are owned by Patricia and myself, 2 for Patricia, 1 for myself, and then 4 of those are our clients' properties.
Awesome, awesome. So when you're dealing with the Airbnb clientele, how much of that guest services, because essentially you have more than 7 beds, definitely. It's 7 units. So you've got maybe 20 something units. It's almost like a small hotel. So how much of the week does that take up is there a busy season? Is there a low tide season? Like, is it always booked? What does it look like as far as like the day to day? Because I know hotels have a seasonal, like, but they're not, in these nice locations. They might just be at the airport. So break it down for the people as far as like what does the weekly activities look like for you guys as far as what it takes to manage that sort of portfolio?
Essentially, what I'll say is that we currently a lot of our properties are in a beach market,
Mm,
and in a beach market this way, there is a busy season, and that's typically around the summertime, right? Because
mhm,
people
mhm,
are going to the beach, they want warm weather, sunshine. This is in Texas, so the beach season is definitely longer than it would be somewhere in the Northeast or in
mhm, mhm,
Colorado where we are. And so what we do is we manage to that. So the idea is that you want to optimize income during the high season and of course during the low season as well, right? So
mhm, mhm,
we're gonna do things like suggest that our clients have amenities during the slow season so that we can optimize the returns from these properties. Now, day to day, when we have guests coming into our properties, it's going to look like a lot of our messaging is automated, but people have questions
mhm,
a
mhm,
lot of the time. So it could be just one-off questions like, hey, where do I find this? Is there a store around that supplies that? So there's no way to predict what it's going to look like from a day-to-day perspective, but there is a lot of client communication or, hey, the hot tub is, sending the handyman over for,
mhm.
little things that happen. I mean, these are properties that are full on houses. They have a lot of moving parts and working pieces that sometimes get broken or need attention. So there's a lot of communication with guests and then possibly our boots on the ground team, making sure that those cleans take place.
Mhm.
Um, in a timely manner as we have same day turns that would be in the high season, right? And even during the slower season we get some of that as well. So
Right.
but each location, each vacation location is going to have its own high and low season. So
Yeah, if you're like somewhere where the leaves are turning some color and people want to go and watch them turn orange or something, that might be their beach season. So maybe you definitely have to know. And it seems like Airbnb has always been about catching some sort of wave. I remember talking to a guy, um, and his whole thing was he would theme suite his Airbnbs for the college sports team. So it'd be all about,
oh wow.
UCLA or something, so that every time there's a sports game, which in college sports is all the time, they would have, and they'd just make it close to the campus. So they'd buy these, like, instead of having a beach, it was that they would come there and they'd have enough beds, they'd like sleep six, and they'd all just be um enjoying the game for people to come and
Right.
just, maybe a little bit too much of a party house, but it's like there's a tide that people have to like participate in, and whether it's the beach season or whether it's the um, sports season, there's always some sort of draw. And then there's that low season where it's like there's amenities that you have to deal with, and it's interesting you say, because like if you think about hotels, there's no kitchens typically, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the fridge this and the microwave that and the stove this and the sink that, and so the
Washing
maintenance on the
machine
yeah,
and the
the
hot
washing
tub
machine.
and the
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah, so you've got like a little, like, each hotel is like its own little hotel. So Dennis, how do you balance the make sure that everything's happening and all the communications going, and she's making sure that she's putting out the fires on the front. So tell us about what it takes to manage the back end for someone who's thinking, oh, I could do this. It's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to think about it in the spectrum, right? In the sequence, and almost think of a roadmap, right? Put yourself in the shoes of a guest, right? From the moment they start searching on Airbnb to when they book, through when they check in, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are
Mm-hmm.
they thinking? Put yourself in the shoes of a guest, right? Even you yourself, you can go through the process. I'm sure many of you have booked through Airbnb, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective, it's about thinking one step ahead or a couple of steps ahead, right? With automations, sending the initial acknowledgement that we received their booking, then check-in instructions, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fundamentals for communication. And then you have your one-offs that Patricia said we can't really predict, and that's where Patricia comes in as the human element of the equation. And now with AI too, I'm really enjoying a lot of that because it's able to think for you to some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So basic questions it could answer for you, right? Then you have more specific questions like, hey, is there a store nearby that sells this specific item, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
hard for the AI to be able to tell the guest that information.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's always about thinking a few moves ahead, thinking what could I automate? What processes could I improve and make more efficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even the notifications that get sent to our team on the ground, right? Our cleaning team and handyman, right? Things of that nature that we can then focus more on growing the business and making sure that clients are being taken care of and the guests are being taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. I've, we were just in Florida, staying here and there, and um, it's a little different. There's a little bit of a different feeling to an Airbnb versus, say, a hotel or even just like a motel. There's like because you are sometimes like, say, splitting a house with someone or something like that. So it's definitely a different vibe, but really it's all through the app, the back and forth, the communication. Like, it's almost like a bubble that's surrounding you and the client, the person booking there. Because like
Mhm.
the homeowner, unless they're the manager, because we were literally staying like, there's like a locked door between this like side beach house unit and their unit. So
Right.
we're not going over and knocking on the door because, that's probably too far with it. But the communication, right down to just being able to punch in a code on the side door and not having to be like, oh, where's the key? Because I've stayed in these weird ones. I remember I stayed in an Airbnb that was like up the side of this hill. It was like a cabin or something. And they're like, yeah, the key's underneath the eagle statue. And it was all this, like, it was just like some so and so's cottage, and like all the towels are just like uncle some so and so, uncle and aunt so and so's towels. And it was just, there definitely is tiers to this game. And if you want to be in that top five, if you want that 5-star ranking, you're gonna have to do more than just have a nice place. It has to be a nice experience, because anyone can have a nice place. But if it's weird, they probably could have told us that like our minivan probably wouldn't have been, like, it wasn't a good idea to have driven all the way up the side of that hill, and that's neglected, right? And that could be something that could have really caused a challenge. You might have had to turn around and go into town and get a motel, and I want a refund and da 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 da. So really, I like what you're saying, like, get ahead of the client at least a step, figure out where the local like CVS is and put it on a printout and put it in the kitchen counter or on the fridge and be like, look, here's the 24-hour pharmacy when you cut yourself, down the street all the way to the end, and here's the number. And like getting ahead of them so that, because a lot of time they're not from that. It's like, if we were living there, we could know that, oh, the CVS is down the street. But people are flying in, they're driving from the airport, or they're getting
Right.
a cab and then they're staying in these places. So how much communication would you say, if someone was, if, like, let's say you were going to train someone, Patricia, to do your part of the game, how much is too much? Is that even possible when it comes to guest communication?
I think that there's a lot of things that, as we grow our team, we can, train people to do. But a lot of the communication, we want to make sure that, like Dennis said, we're staying a few steps ahead. Like you mentioned, a drugstore, we have first aid kits in all of our properties. We're already thinking about these things. We've been to the area. I've been to the area several times, the areas that we manage in, and we are keeping our messaging up front. But when things arise, look, Airbnb game has stepped it up quite a bit. And in order to be an operator in this space and continue to get the returns that everybody's looking for, you need to be willing to go the extra mile, and to be quick in your response time to guests, and your even just your tone and some of your messages. So yeah, I think that there's probably a great deal that we can teach our team as we continue to grow as a business, and that we will. There's things that we do on a regular basis to keep the listing fresh, even, going in, making sure the pictures look good, making sure we're showing up in where we're showing up in the results for our clients. And revenue management, meaning like pricing strategies. We're staying on top of all of these things. We're making sure that we're tickling those prices a little bit every couple of days. And I think that that sets us apart in a lot of ways, because even some managers kind of do a set it and forget it. The listing's up, and if it gets bookings, great, we'll manage it. And if it doesn't, but we're kind of taking it a few steps ahead to make sure that we're optimizing these the bookings for our clients and the experience for our guests. So
what would you say, a couple of those are your properties. Do you plan to continue to expand your real estate holdings, or is the focus right now really about building the management company out? Or did the management come from the fact that you're like, well, I'm already doing it and people keep asking me to do it, so?
I think that's a little bit of a chicken and an egg question, right? We're doing it. We love what we do. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think that I would have jumped into this business without having partnered up with Dennis, right? To me, I think what makes our company stand out and really perform well is the fact that we each have these strong, our strong suits, and we get to lean into those things, right? I'm great at communications. I'm great at, making sure I'm keeping that listing fresh. I'm great at talking to the boots on the ground team and creating a wonderful guest experience. But if I had to manage all of the tech stack on the other side, no way. No, thank you. So I think it's really important to lean into authenticity in what you do well. And so would I have done it without the partnership? Probably not. But I think that growing our portfolios is definitely a goal over the next couple of years. So I both personally and professionally. Is that right, Dennis?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what Patricia's saying. I mean, personally, one of my goals is to continue growing my portfolio, right? And one of the areas that I'm looking into is the midterm rental space. And even with my property right now, I do a hybrid of short-term rental and midterm rental. So that's something that a skill that I've acquired too, that then I can apply to our business as well, right? Any future clients and areas that is a good area for a midterm strategy or a hybrid between midterm and short term, I know what to do. I know how to approach it and get tenants in place, right? So I think it's about thinking longer term, but also not having that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, staying focused. I mean, one thing that we should address, kind of the elephant in the room, is short-term rentals is a little bit under attack right now. What are you guys doing to kind of manage the fact that more and more it seems like every 3 or 6 months there's something running in the news like New York City no longer allows, extra, read all about it. New York
Yeah.
City's banning Airbnb. And it's just like, to what end, and what are you doing to kind of navigate those? Because now there's more permits and more things that are coming along in some of these states. So have you had to address any of those so far in your management career? And what do you hope to do for your clients should something like that arise? Because
I
that's
would
really
say
where the
that,
midterm comes in, right? People are flipping from short term to midterm because
yeah.
there's, this, it's a housing crisis. Yeah, it's a housing crisis on the beach where they're like $1 million prices. Like, it's not a housing crisis on the beach, guys. It's just they want their taxes. So what are you guys doing to manage that sort of I guess it's like litigation to some degree?
I would say we love it. We love those headlines because it shows that there is a lot of people that are stepping out of the game because of what
Mhm.
Patricia said at the beginning. They bit off a little too much, right? They didn't
Mhm.
do the proper analysis, the vetting before they went into it, right? They thought, oh, I'm going to buy this and it's going to be a cash cow. So from the regulations perspective, right, I think we're fortunate enough to be in vacation markets that have historically been vacation markets. So it's
Mm.
very unlikely that there's going to be any change in that. And whenever we do step into new markets, right, we know what things to look for, right? Like what type of regulations are there, what type of permitting might there need to be in place.
Mhm.
So that if that is the case, we know the processes of how to obtain those permits, or at least guide our clients so they can get their permits for their properties. But I think what's happening right now too in the short-term rental space is that a lot of dead weight is being dropped, and then the cream of the crop is really rising to the top, right? Because right now you really have to put a lot of intention behind your design and what amenities you put into your property. It's not
Mhm.
about, again, just putting up anything and have it cash flow immediately. You really have to be intentional about how you are showing your property and trying to attract guests.
For sure. And what I'll add there is, for instance, we have a property in our portfolio that's in Joshua Tree. It's one of my properties. And Joshua Tree is a heavily regulated vacation rental area. I think there's been some of what you're even referring to, which is, housing crisis, stricter
Mhm.
regulations. My property has a permit. It's not that difficult to acquire. So you do have to go, but you do have to go through the steps of obtaining that permit. I believe in San Bernardino County, they have some sort of permit limits, which I think is good. And when if you are a student of Avery Carl, who wrote the book Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth, she talks about these areas that have these regulations in place. It's not a bad thing. I think it's
Yeah.
good, and you just have to know how to navigate it. We've been through it in a couple of our locations, and when you're talking about Airbnb is dead. It's not dead. It's not just a set it and forget it. It's not super easy. It's not you're not getting 20% cash on cash
Yeah, it's a
return
business. Yeah,
for
it's a
no
business
reason.
that you have to do, right?
Yes. It's work.
Yeah.
And so you have to amenitize your properties. You have to make sure that the pictures are showing well.
Mhm.
And even just as an example, I'm heading to Joshua Tree later this month to add a couple more amenities to that property because, you have to know what your competition is in your market. And, we try to keep and make sure that our properties are the cream of the crop and they're going to perform as best as they're capable of.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much all the questions other than the lightning round. Are you guys ready?
Do it.
Yeah.
Either of you can jump in. So they're a little bit off the cuff, but if your hosting style had a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh. Hmm. I think you
Um,
might be better at songs than I am, Patricia.
Or like a theme, like what's the energy that you're trying to put out into these things, you know? Like is it
I oh my God, the song that just came into my head is totally gonna age me, but it's like a come and knock on my door.
oh, Three's Company, okay. Yeah. What's the weirdest guest request you've ever received?
Ooh.
Obviously, we can protect the privacy. You don't have to. We could skip. You could say pass.
The weirdest guest request. I've not had any weird ones, to be
Yeah,
There you
honest.
go.
I
Yeah,
haven't had any that are out of this world either.
yeah.
There you go. So the weirdest thing would be like, where's the CVS? Okay. So describe your ideal vacation rental guest in 3 words.
Ooh.
Um, you know,
Well, if it was me, it'd be quiet, paid on time, left the place the way they found it.
yeah, I mean, you know, quiet, clean, friendly. You know, that's no
I'd say,
parties, no parties allowed.
yeah.
No parties allowed.
Yeah.
This is going to be a tough one, probably. Here we go. If your co-hosting journey was a movie, who would play you in the film?
Ooh. Tom Cruise.
Say that again.
Tom Cruise.
There you go.
And I
Tom
have
Cruise is
Rosario Dawson.
oh yeah,
I like that
that
one.
makes sense. Okay, and the last one here. What's the wildest behind the scenes moment managing your properties?
Oh
Oh,
man.
I have one story. So last year, or at the end of 2022, there was a deep freeze that impacted Texas,
Yep.
and my water heater busted. And of course, this is like, I think over the Christmas holiday, I had to remove guests, had it replaced, and then it still wasn't like it started working and then it wasn't working again. And so I had 2 sets of guests who had no hot water. And I mean, I did everything in my power. I communicated with them like as much as I possibly could. And, of course, gave them discount. They both still gave me 5-star reviews. So I just think that's a little bit of a win.
Yeah, it's as long as you're, and the same thing, a lot of times we're talking about raising money and buying deals, with the fact that a lot of time we're talking about the property side of things. We're talking about the management side, but it seems that transparency is always going to come out on top. If you're like, I'm just gonna like ignore my guests until they leave, and then maybe I will. No, you're definitely going to get us. And the same thing, if you have trouble with your deal and and you're trying to like hide it somewhere in it or just not be responsive to it, you got to be proactive. You got to be transparent, and I think that's business in general is transparency and getting ahead of the thing and really just doing everything you can to. Because at the end of the day, let's say I was in a deal and I was flipping a house. Well, who's my client? My client is actually going to be the person who lent me the money to
Right.
actually do the deal. Maybe it's my own money partially, but most of the time it's a hard money lender or a friend or a family or whatever that's put the money down for to do the flip. Now, who's my tenant? The money partner. So I got to be like, oh, things are taking a little longer. We'll be right up with the toilet paper. The same
100%.
idea with service goes into actually flipping property. So if people want to find out more about you guys, they want you to manage their property, what should they do? How do they find you?
Visit our website, coboscohosting.com.
And for
Of
people listening along, can you spell it out for it? Because it's not terribly obvious.
Course. So it's COB as in Bravo OS,
Mm-hmm.
COHOSTING.com.
There you go. And on people on video can see all of our beautiful Instagrams. You can hit us up on there. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys stopping by, and I wish you guys all the success in 2024.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. And until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.